Sup guys, long time no see. I thought I'd surprise you all with a video that you guys would have never guessed in a million years would come from someone like me, someone who mostly does like Monster Jam videos. But no, I decided to go and do a horse racing video. Another hobby of mine that I like is horse racing. Of course, we all know the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont Stakes, and the Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup's been around since 1984, and it's a rotational event. Goes all around the United States, plus one exception into Canada in 1996 when they had it at Woodbine. Now, I like the idea of rotational events, but in the past decade, they mostly stuck at either San Anita or Churchill Downs. Now, I get it. They are prestigious venues, but they really need to dip into more variety. After 2004, when they had the Breeders' Cup at Lone Star Park, it pretty much showed anyone can hold the Breeders' Cup at this point. Heck, they even had it at Monmouth Park in 2007. So without further ado, I decided to compile 10 tracks that might be able to hold the Breeders' Cup, and I'd be really happy if they did. Let's get started. The first racetrack that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Parks, also known as Philadelphia Park, opened in 1974. It holds such races such as the Cotillion and the Pennsylvania Derby in September. Well, given the fact that both those races lead to the Breeders' Cup, it'd be a no-brainer to see this hold the Breeders' Cup at one point in its lifetime. Because I just think it would be really cool to see a kind of forgotten racetrack. Well, I mean, it's ran all year, but it's not really the first track that comes to your mind when you think of horse racing. So it's nice to see an underdog racetrack, similar to what we saw in 2004. The next racetrack that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Turf Paradise in Arizona. Northwest of Phoenix, it is a very cool racetrack, I think opened in 1980. It's not the newest racetrack, but it's one of the newer ones on this list. So I just wanted to see, because horse racing is not very big in Arizona. I mean, I think this is the only racetrack in Arizona that has a turf course. Of course, Yavapai Downs closed in 2010, but just reopened just this year. And even so, this would still be an amazing racetrack. On top of that, it's in November, and this track's open in November, so you don't have to worry about scheduling issues. And also, it's not very hot. It's not as hot as it usually is in Phoenix in November, so why not? Maybe it would be very pretty in November in Phoenix, Arizona. Who knows? The third racetrack I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is the Fairgrounds. Of course, the Fairgrounds, it's another kind of underrated track. It's either this or Louisiana Downs or Evangeline. And honestly, I decided to go with one track per state for this list. So I decided to go with the Fairgrounds just because it's kind of a unique little racetrack here. It's a little smaller than it looks, but hey, size doesn't really matter, am I right? Yeah, so moving on. The fourth racetrack I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Remington Park. For some reason, I always mistakenly think that Remington Park is in the state of Texas, which, no, it's not in Texas. It's in Oklahoma. I don't know why I always get that messed up. But an honorable mention, speaking of Texas, I would have put Retama Park on here, but I decided against it just because, I don't know why. I just have better racetrack guesses, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, Remington Park, it's kind of a long shot because it mostly does like quarter horse racing. In fact, it went 10 years just quarter horse racing, like they usually do in the spring, but they just opened up back in August, and then they'll run until like October, November, December, or something. Let's just say it's not open all year, but hey, it's still being used a lot more often than some of these other racetracks. The fifth racetrack I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Fort Erie up in Ontario, I think. I could be wrong on that. I'm not very good at Canadian geography. But now you may be saying, well, this is supposed to be in the United States, not Canada. Well, you're wrong, because in 1996, the Breeders' Cup was held at Woodbine, which, of course, Woodbine, it's a very beautiful racetrack, a very weird turf course, which was brand new at the time. And, of course, Woodbine, they hold the Queen's Plate and the Breeders' Stakes, the first and third leg of the Triple Crown, while this holds the second one. This is, unfortunately, the only other racetrack that could hold the Breeders' Cup, because it's the only one of two racetracks that have a turf course inside of a dirt course, if that makes any sense. Or unless in Woodbine's case, a turf course within a dirt course within a bigger turf course. Wrap your head around that, folks. Now that we've reached the halfway mark, here are 4 honorable mentions. Indiana Grand, Tampa Bay Downs, Belterra Park, and Hawthorne. Now with the honorable mentions out of the way, let's mention the last 5 tracks. The 6th track that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Golden Gate Fields out in California. Now you may be saying, they really need to go somewhere else in California besides Del Mar and Santa Anita. And yes, I agree. 11 out of the 36 Breeders' Cups have been held at Santa Anita or Del Mar, and then they'll hold it again in 2021 at Del Mar. It's getting pretty old, but they really need more variety. Unfortunately, they don't really have variety here. This or Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa, I was going to put on this list, but it's extremely unlikely. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Golden Gate Fields, it's a unique little oval here with a synthetic dirt course similar to what Remington Park has now, but they didn't have it back then when they held the Breeders' Cup in 2002. If you even understood what I even said there. The 7th track that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Ells Park. One of only 3 racetracks, I think, that has a turf course and a dirt course in the state of Kentucky. And there's other racetracks, Kentucky Downs and Turfway, which I was going to put like a hybrid on this list, like how the dirt races run at Turfway and the turf races run at Kentucky Downs, but it just wouldn't work like that, honestly. But this would be a cool alternative because they have such a big turf course there. I go to this place all the time, so I would probably be able to see the Breeders' Cup for myself, but it's extremely unlikely because this place is just an absolute dump. But they're trying to get new owners to do it so they could make renovations to it. And I really don't want to see this track fail, but the Breeders' Cup will really, really help this track. I mean, it helped Arlington Park and Belmont, but they haven't held it in such a long time. The 8th racetrack that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is Colonial Downs. Now, this track opened in 1997. I think it's the most recent one on this list, but I could be wrong on that. And it closed down a few years ago, but it just reopened. They sunk $100 million to resurrect this place. It's the only racetrack in the state of Virginia, in New Kent to be exact. And it's just almost a no-brainer, honestly, to hold the Breeders' Cup at such a huge place like this. A mile-and-a-quarter dirt oval and a mile-and-an-eighth turf track. And the turf track's just about similar to that of Gulfstream in Arlington. It's super-duper big. And, of course, they have the famous Virginia Derby. In fact, they hold 2 of the 4 races in the Grand Slam of the Grass, which is the Colonial Turf Cup, and the Virginia Derby, which have been moved to Laurel Park. But the Virginia Derby is set to return next weekend. Hopefully, it'll be a really good place, and it'll be a really good race on top of that. Now, if you thought this was more deserving of the Breeders' Cup, you have not seen these last 2. These 2 should have been run like one of the first times they've ever run it. The 9th track that I want to see hold the Breeders' Cup is a no-brainer. I mean, come on. It's Laurel Park over in Maryland. And the reason I picked this track over Pimlico is because it's a way bigger track. It's got, well, it doesn't really have a bigger capacity, but I just think it'd be a way better choice than Pimlico. Now, I'm not saying Pimlico shouldn't hold the Breeders' Cup. I just wish that Pimlico was run way more than it should, than it actually does in real life. Now, Laurel Park, it's open all year round, I think. It's even run during the winter, and they even have their own Breeders' Cup series called the Maryland Million, which it sounds just exactly what it is. It was created by Jim McKay, may he rest in peace. But I just think that Laurel Park, they're constantly trying. Hopefully they'll get it in 2022. If not, then there's just something wrong with people if they don't think that this track deserves to hold the Breeders' Cup. The only issue I see is they don't run a mile 16 dirt races, because that's what the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and the Juvenile Fillies is. It's a mile and a 16th. That'd be kind of an issue. They'd have to like start on a turn, like maybe like Belmont Park when they do for a mile and a quarter race. Although that used to be a straight, that's the only obstacle that I could see with this. But other than that, come on, just once. I don't care if you never do it again. It's just a great racetrack, but there's just one track that they should have held it like one of the first times. The 10th and final racetrack is Saratoga. come on. I mean, Aqueduct and Belmont have already held the Breeders' Cup, so why can't Saratoga? Well, there's only one major issue that I see with this. There's only one major obstacle that I could see them not hold the Breeders' Cup, and that is its scheduling. Similar to why I didn't put Pimlico on this list is because it's only open between July and September, and just about August as well. It's not really open November because they have like a schedule there. It's not open all year round, but it really, really should, because this is kind of the most underappreciated of the three big tracks in New York. And I just think, I mean, come on, it's the oldest facility in the United States, opened in 1863. Pimlico's just a few years younger than that. But I just think it should be really, really cool. Sorry, I'm kind of stretching for time here. Let's just move on. Now I have 3 questions to ask you, unlike the usual one. Which tracks do you think should hold the Breeders' Cup? And did you like this video, and should I do more like this? Now, I know this has been kind of a weird little video if you've known me for the last year or so. And also, this is my first time I've ever uploaded in the month of August. So now I've officially uploaded in all the months of the year. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe.